Hello, PAX. I'm Dallas Kemp with Atomic Mass Games, makers of Marvel Crisis Protocol. I forgot to hit the button, so you have to forgive me. It's Saturday. We're having a good time, and it's PAX. So I hope you're enjoying all the content. I hope you're enjoying all the streams that PAX has provided. So this is Intro to Miniatures and Assembly and Painting. A lot of people getting into miniatures. Miniatures are becoming more prevalent in our industry, and maybe you've never put one together, maybe you've been intimidated by it, and I'm going to walk you through the steps. We're going to assemble a miniature, and then we're going to do some painting on it. Maybe I can finish in an hour. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to just switch it over here to my mini cam, which is right here, and I've got a Spider-Man, our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Everybody knows and loves Peter Parker Spider-Man. I love Peter Parker Spider-Man. And we're going to put him together, and we're going to paint him up. And I'm going to show you some quick tips and how to get him painted really quick. So the very first thing you got is this is the frame that plastic miniature comes on. Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures are made from hard plastic. It's injected. You're going to need some clippers, some sharp clippers. You're going to need a hobby knife. And I got a couple different hobby knives. And then I have a little, this is just a silicone puck. You could even take a Marvel Crisis Protocol base, flip it upside down, and this is for putting glue on, because I apply my glue with toothpicks for precision. So I have a pair of precision clippers here. I'm going to start with this little tactical base. It's got a flat end and a bevel side. And I'm just going to press that right up against. You can see this is where the plastic flows into the part. I'm going to go right there, clip that away. I'm just going to clip all this off. Well, not all of it. I usually go step by step. I follow the instructions. So when the instruction says do part 7 and 10, I clip out part 7 and 10, and then I assemble those. I try not to rush stuff, right? It's not a race. You're not competing, unless you are competing, of course. There are competitions. But for hobbying, the only person you're trying to make happy is you, right? The only person you should be comparing yourself is your last attempt or your last miniature. So I'm going to put some glue over here. It's much better with audio, that's correct. It's Saturday, and I'm going to go ahead and just tell everybody it's my vacation. And so I was up a little late last night playing video games. I'm going to be real honest about it. So I'm just going to put this part right there. Put a little bit of glue. You saw I put a little bit of glue on there with my toothpick. And we'll go through each of these steps. You're going to see it all. And if you have any questions about miniature painting or miniature assembly, feel free to ask. I'm here to answer them. So I got the back and the front of his torso. I'm going to do that next. I'm just going to, once again, use the flat edge right up against the part, clip it out, and then right where the injection went into the part, I'm going to clean that up just ever so slightly with my hobby knife. Just very gentle. If you're having to force, you're doing it wrong, of course. This should be very, very simple and easy. Now, one thing miniatures get is what's called a mold line, and that's actually where the steel comes together. These are made out of big steel blocks. That's how you make this. There's a lot of technical engineering and stuff that goes into making these. But so say like on this leg, that steel blocks, these two steel blocks are coming together. So there's a little line. It's called a mold line or a seam line, and I'm going to show you how to get rid of that too. So a little bit of glue on my toothpick. Oh. Most important part. I put together so many Spider-Mans, I forget this part. Dry fit. So all that means is you take the two parts and you test them. Make sure they fit together. And this Spider-Man, he fits together really, really tightly. And that's just for you to know how the part works, right? How the two pieces come together. Oh, he is really stuck together. I don't even know if I need glue. It's almost a push fit. Right? It's better to You know, there's an old saying, measure twice, cut once. You know, when you're working with wood. It's the same with miniatures. You know, fit twice, glue once. Because it's better to get an idea and understand how and why. Like everything is a why on miniatures. There's a very good reason why things are done. So messing with the part and figuring out the whys before you shove glue on there is really important, because then you get glue all over you get glue all over him, Peter Parker, if you're working on Peter Parker. If you're not working on Peter Parker, somebody else. So I clipped the legs off. I'm going to clean that up. As you can see, that injection went right into the key. That's the key that's going to go into the leg. I'm just going to clean up those injections. 2 injections on this. And then there's our mold line. It goes over the thigh there. So I'm going to take the sharp end of the blade, I'm going to turn it backwards, and I'm going to just drag it real quick. And that eradicates. And that mold line, that seam is very, very slight. I don't even think you would actually notice it. It's just an inevitable byproduct of manufacturing, right? Now we do our best to minimize those, but you know, sometimes they're just there. See what I did there? I totally didn't dry fit that. See, I told you, I'm always I put together too many Spider-Mans. I put together way too many Spider-Mans. Not enough Spider-Mans. Always time for more Spider-Mans. Jackalman, any pro tips for using a craft knife like that? Sometimes I get overzealous and I cut too deep and then I revert to scraping, which I feel is not good, but maybe it's okay. I'm not quite sure I understand. You want to just drag ever so slightly, right? It's better to cut less multiple times than cut more and mess it up. And then scraping, you just scrape. So it should be, you press it right and you just drag ever so slightly. You're just removing just what you need slowly. Build it up. Take your time. I'm going to actually test fit this leg. Practice what you preach, right? Now when the parts like say the legs come to the torso here, you get a little gap. And there's multiple ways to handle the gaps on miniatures. You can use glue. I'm going to show you that. So like say you got this little seam. I actually left that seam a little bit wider just to show you this. But you can take a little bit of glue and kind of dab it on there. I'm going to get a second too quick for cleanup. Or when you're putting glue on the part, you can kind of overfill it so it mushes out. And I'm going to let that cure a little bit. Just let the glue dry a little bit, and then we can scrape that away and polish it, and you'll have a nice smooth surface. The other way to get rid of gaps is with putty. I actually use a brown aluminum plumber's putty. It's 2-part. You mix it together. You can get that at like hardware stores and stuff like that. And I put a little bit of putty over that and I smooth it down. It's really up to you. There's no wrong way to do it. I'm gonna do his arm. I like leaving the arms for last, or the head for last, because then I feel like that moment in Iron Man 1, right, where the suit all comes together and the helmet comes down, and you're like, oh, that's Iron Man. I do the same thing with my miniatures sometimes. I'll be putting them together, and I purposely leave the head for last because it's like that final moment where the character comes together. All right, so this is his thwip arm, which is his right arm, and I'm just going to test that. That looks really super good. I see we have Simbot and Scheherazade in there, and I know they are very new to miniature painting and assembling, but they've had a lot of success and fun. I've gotten to see some of those, and They've been just taking their time and building your skills. And I'm gonna be honest, that's what it's all about, right? It's all about, we're all in different points of the same path, right? And so sometimes you gotta remind yourself, like, you know, it's not about comparing yourself to someone else and where they're at, but it's about comparing your work to the last thing you did and being proud of how far you've come in a short time. I'm just testing that arm and then tacking it on just with a little bit of glue. See, the Spider-Man goes together super quick. Just a little patience and time. He's got 2 heads, and I get a lot of questions like, why does Spider-Man have 2 heads? This is just a frame balancing thing. It's technical. It's just to make sure plastic is balanced and we get a nice frame. So we needed an extra part, and this was a good shape, size, weight, whatever. Now some characters have 2 heads, so you gotta be careful. Some characters have 2 heads. In Marvel Crisis Protocol, they're alternate heads. This is the same head. There you go. Simbot says, I painted my second ever mini at PAX Unplugged last year at the panel that I did. That is true. That was the second miniature. It's only been a year, and how far you've come, right? In your miniature painting journey, right? And sometimes the journey is not about like becoming the best or becoming a professional, right? Like I always say, each miniature has a destiny, and I get to choose that destiny. So like this Spider-Man, this is for a tabletop. This is for a game. So I'm not going to try to paint it to like a high standard. I'm not going to try to paint it to a display or a box level. I'm just going to paint it for me, right? And no matter what, I'm going to be really happy with it. Oh, I put glue on his feet. So he's got a little spot here for his foot. You can see it right there. And then the second foot just touches the I-beam. I'm just going to stick it right on there. Yeah, you have quite a collection of miniatures. It's pretty impressive. Now another thing, so my glue is brand new, actually. I see a lot of people, or a lot of questions, they're having trouble with assembling their miniatures, and like they're putting a part on and another part's falling off. Top tip, secret tip, glue goes bad. Glue actually does go bad. It doesn't have a super long shelf life once you open it up. So if you're having trouble with your glue sticking, it's probably just old. I get rid of glue that is giving me problems. And you'll know it. Like once you get a new bottle of glue, you'll see that the miniature sticks quicker and more effectively. And less is more when you're gluing. I don't slather on glue. You don't want a whole lot of glue because then it actually has a harder time bonding. This is my second favorite part. Just kind of choose how I want him on that base. Stick the rubble on there. I got Spider-Man. Flip. He's ready to go. So of course, we only have an hour. We don't have a long time. And I don't have my airbrush to priming. I use an airbrush because I don't have any, actually don't have any spray primer right now. So we're gonna do the magic whoop. It's like a baking show. We're gonna swap the camera over, and now we're gonna paint our Spider-Man. There is a primed Spider-Man, ready to paint. Let's see if we can get a little So let's bring down that contrast. There we go. Alright, let's paint our Spider-Man. Does this mean lend itself to having multiple costume options, or designed with the... It's designed with the classic red-blue. It's designed as the classic red-blue, but with some creativity, you could totally paint however you want, and you know, you should paint however you want. So the cool thing about miniature painting is you kind of get to explore and do what you want to do and make the miniature your own. It's one of my favorite parts, right? Like, even if I paint my Spider-Man red and blue, it's probably going to look different than your Spider-Man, just because some of the choices I'm going to make. And we're going to talk about some of those as we go. So let's say on the red, you might do like a very orange highlight, and I might do a very pink highlight. So this miniature was primed with what's called a zenithal prime. So that means it's primed black, and then it's primed white from above. And what that does is creates a very quick shadow for you to work with. Another thing it does, I'm just going to cover his eyes, it doesn't matter at this stage. The other thing it does, it provides a lot of contrast in the miniature, right, from light to dark. So you can see here on the other side of his legs, it's much darker than up here on his shoulders, right? And then I'm going to use what's called a wash. Now, wash is just a very thin paint that's designed to flow into the crevices and provide that shadow. So you can see, like, it's just flowing in and leaving a little bit of that white over the top. Now you can make a wash, actually. You can buy a wash. There's lots of cool products out there to try if you're new to it. But the big thing I'm doing is just taking my time and making sure I'm not being overly messy. I'm not doing a big solid coat here, right? I'm actually using that primer to my advantage to provide some of the light and shadow. Now, some people get intimidated by yeah, and we're gonna Jacqueline, yeah. Wait till we do the next wash on this. I got a little secret trick for everybody to paint your Spider-Mans to make those web lines pop out even more. So I'm just going to, all the areas that are supposed to be red, I'm just going to paint them red with this wash. If I get a little messy, it's okay. If it gets on something I'm going to paint over, it especially doesn't matter, because that's just what I'm going to paint anyways. It's like if I get a little layer on that rock, it doesn't matter, I'll paint over that. So you need to be zoomed out just a touch. I feel like it does. Now I'm going to pick a light blue. I'm going to check this camera. I feel like we're a little overexposed. There we go. There we go. So now I'm going to pick a light blue. Now you can pick whatever blue you want. I'm going to prefer a light blue because of the way we're going to approach this. And I'm going to paint his blue parts. And I can thin this down with a little bit of water. And once again, I can use that white primer as like a way to kind of like do a thin paint over and let a little bit of that white shine through to give it more contrast. Yeah, it looks like one solid piece right now. Like I went, you know, I had two here, obviously. I did use super glue or putty to gap fill the miniature, so covered up all the little gaps to get them ready for painting, right? Just a natural step in assembling and painting miniatures. So now I'm just going to be real careful. Blue under his arms. Now his back. Remember, the spider symbol on his back is red, not black. Oh, got a little hair. Just wipe it away. Just wipe it away. I'm just going to be a little more careful. Get that spot right where that blue and that red meet. Just like that. Just make sure there's a nice coat. Give it a little extra. Just a little beaded up right down top as well. So that's already looking like Spider-Man. Now I want to do a wash on this. Now, and what that's going to do is darken up the legs, the blue areas. But before I do that, I need to make sure everything's dry. And the other thing we're going to do is we're actually going to use the blue wash on the red. A really good shadow color to blue or to red is blue or purple, right? It makes for a very nice shadow to red. Adds a lot of depth. So we're going to let this dry. We're going to work on some of the black areas while this is drying up, and then we're going to do a blue wash, and we're going to darken up those lines and cover the and darken up the paints. So I'm going to take a little black first. This is the Precision. I want a good brush. I like size 1s and 2s. That's typically what I use. You use whatever works for you. Everybody has preferences. Whatever works. You know, if you can paint a miniature with a toothpick and it looks the way you want it to look, then that's the right tool. So I'm just going to paint those goggles. Jackman, that steady hand, it's all about ergonomics to get steady. It's all about like anchoring. I see I'm anchoring my pinky there. And I'm taking my breath and then I'm exhaling as I paint the line. And I'm not rushing. I'm staying relaxed. I'm not stressing. I'm keeping my posture upright. I'm actually at a standing desk right now. It's the way I prefer to paint. But I'm making sure that my back is straight and I'm not doing that painter hunch over, right? We've all seen or done it. You don't want to hunch over. It's really hard on your lower back and your shoulders, and it causes stress. And when you cause stress, your body kind of freaks out, and then you're not comfortable, and then you can't be all precise. What are the differences in brush sizes? It's every brush company has differences. So a size 1 in one company might be a size 5 in another company. So I typically buy watercolor brushes. A size 1 is actually a little small for me. I paint a lot of stuff with size 2s. And it's each company measures it different. Like it might be, it's usually just the size compared to other things around it in the company. So for me, a good brush has a what's called a wide belly, the belly of the brush, which is this part from the ferrule. The ferrule is the metal part. The belly is the big, or barrel is this big wide part, and the tip. I like a big belly and a tiny tip. This is a size 2. This is a size 2. See how it's got a big belly and a tiny tip? That's what it's all about for me. Oh, there's a question here. I kind of missed it. Scrolled past. They don't need to assemble a light gray plastic. Light gray plastic. So you can do a light green, like if you're painting something, you can throw paint all over if you want, but you gotta go back and paint it anyways. I'm definitely more of a take your time and put the colors in the right spot person first, like, and then build around that. Thanks for the heckle, Scheherazade. Now I'm going to use a blue wash. It's only been 30 minutes. I'm almost done with this. This is. I didn't think I was going to be this fast today. So I'm going to use a blue wash. Now I'm going to do what I call precision washing. And this is just going to kind of slather all over the blue. So I'm just going to slop this on the blue areas. And see, I'm not like letting it puddle. I'm just kind of controlling it and bringing it around. And that's really going to darken up those legs. In this area here. I thin this with just a tiny touch of water. And then if you want a little heavier, like say in this lower back, don't thin it down with water. And as this dries, I can throw another layer of wash in the lower area, so like under that thigh muscle, just to darken it even more. Now I said we were going to shade our red with blue, and that's still the case. Once again, I'm going to blue wash, a little tiny touch of water, and see how thin this is. Washing is absolutely an art. So I'm just going to tap and make sure those little web lines are full of the blue, like so. And bring that around. Just like that. And it's okay. It's okay if you've never done this before and you kind of make a mess. That's okay. That's part of learning. It's part of growing. You know? I got a bunch of miniatures over in my collection of stuff where I didn't know what I was doing. So I asked a lot of questions and I messed up a whole lot. but I just kept going and kept loving what I was doing, and just, you know, I chose how far I wanted to take my skills and my learning, and then I stuck to it. And not everybody wants to go as far as other people. Sometimes you just want to come home after a day's work and spend an hour throwing some washes on your Spider-Man, and some people want to be the best miniature painter in the world, and there's nothing wrong with either of those approaches. It says do what you love with the time you got, right? And we're gonna let that dry. I like darkening the back a lot. There we go. Really darken it back. Once you're done painting a miniature, can you use the camera to give an overview of your paint setup and how you go through the processes? My paint setup right this second is not typical, right? Because I'm streaming. So I kind of got a bunch of stuff on my desk, and it's my work desk, so I probably shouldn't show it anyways. But typically I just have a wet palette and a well palette. I'm still here, I'm just talking. I have a wet palette, a well palette, a couple brushes. Typically I don't even look at what size brushes I have, I just grab them, but I'm a monster. Some paper towels, a towel, and a cup of water. That's usually it. And a nice cup of coffee. Alright, so like I said, maybe I want the pants to be a little darker, right? So I'm going to go in there with very undiluted washes. I want to paint the underside of his thighs. And you can use a second brush, like if you get it up there. I like to use a second brush a lot. It's damp, it's not wet, it has no paint on it. And I'll just kind of push it away and soften that edge. Oops. And that's just going to darken up those areas that I want to be a little bit darker. And you don't have to do this. It's up to you. This Spider-Man already looks pretty good for a table. Or like say you want to create more drama here on his abs, where he's kind of twisting. You go in there with a little more blue. Well, this is that precision wash, right? So I'm just taking the tiniest amount of wash color and very purposely putting it where I want. You don't have to do this. I like showing people that you can be more precise with a wash. You know, a lot of times when you first learn how to paint miniatures, somebody teaches you how to wash, and you get taught to just kind of slop it on, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also other things to learn if you want. You don't have to. I like doing that. You can see how that just provides that more drama. It's all about drama. The drama of the story. Especially with Marvel, right? Big dramatic stories of heroes and villains. It's awesome. Alright. I'm gonna let that dry. Is the wash a technique with existing paint, or is it a special kind of paint? That's a great question. To me, a wash is not a thing, it is a technique. You can buy pre-made washes with many different companies, makes many different washes. But wash is a technique. So you can take an existing paint, you can add a little water, you can buy some heavy body medium, and you can make your own wash. The goal of a wash, or the purpose of a wash, is to go inside a crevice and retreat from the raised surface to create contrast and shadow. A lot of people mix up the word wash and glaze. So let's get arty. So a glaze is a very thin paint. It's not a it's a technique, not a thing. But it's a very thin paint that goes over an entire area that doesn't pull up in the recesses, that is usually designed to blend stuff together or create a filter. So imagine if you took a piece of my boss actually said the other day, it was a really good example. I always use like the photography, like when you go get your family portrait taken and the photographer puts like a yellow film over the light. But he brought up the 3D glasses, right? You put on 3D glasses, you got the red and blue filter. You close one eye and everything looks red. You close one eye, everything looks blue, and you're using both. And on the right surface, it looks three-dimensional. Think about a glaze is like that. It's a filter to change the color. But it's not a thing, it is a technique. All right, let's highlight, well, we're gonna do some more black. We're gonna do a little bit more black. I'm gonna take a little bit of white and a little bit of black. We're gonna highlight our spider on the chest and maybe paint the eyes. Let's see what happens. Painting miniatures is very relaxing. It's a very rewarding hobby. So I'm just gonna mix a little black and a little off-white and highlight that little spider on his chest. There's just a little bit of highlight just to make the spider pop. Like so. Now remember, the other spider on the back is, I'm not adding googly eyes, kids. We're not doing it. A little more white. Now I'm only going to paint one side. This side's much harder to paint on camera because I got the camera right on my shoulder. So you're just going to have to trust. We're going to leave just a little bit of black showing. I don't want to overwork that. If my paint starts drying, it'll get gloppy. So even though that's not perfect yet, that's okay. I'm going to walk away for a second. Add some more little tiny highlights on my spider here. Just like where the legs are like angled. Like I said, I don't want paint to get gloppy by just overworking, so I stop, walk away, grab new paint, then finish up that eye. Alright, let that paint dry instead of just overworking it. See a lot of paint jobs where people overwork it. Then you can come in with like a really bright white. And I like putting the highlight right up on the top, just to show that reflection. Like that. Depending on the meaning, is it ever advisable to paint the base and or figure before attaching the two? It's really up to you. I'm not a huge person of painting stuff in sub-assembly. Let's see here. like for a really good example, Doctor Strange. I've seen people paint this sub-assembled, so they leave the rings off, the mystic rings off. I actually attach everything, and then I have the philosophy, if my brush can't reach it, you can't see it. So that's just the way I paint. That's the way I approach stuff. But it's literally up to you. It's your choice on what works best for you, not what works best for me. I've seen in my time, I've painted with and been taught by many professional painters, and they all approach stuff differently, right? Everybody has their own approach. So it's about finding what works best for you. So I'm gonna take a little bright red, a little bright orange. I don't know, should we go pink highlights or orange highlights? I'm down for really either. Let's just start with some pure red. I'm just gonna put in some red. I'm just gonna use the side of my brush. I'm just gonna drag it across. So this is almost like dry brushing, which might be a technique you've heard of. That's when you kind of overload a big chunky brush, dry it off a whole lot. It has very little paint on it. You drag it across a miniature and it just grabs the details. This is kind of like that, except for I'm just using the tip of the brush just to accentuate those raised surfaces of the Spider-Man webs. Just to bring some of that red back in there. You know, it doesn't take much. You know, just bring. Angry Bubba asks, what type of brushes I recommend? Natural, synthetic? Both. They both have their uses. They both have their place. I'm using natural hair brushes for this, but if I was painting, you know, but I know some amazing painters who use all synthetic. You know, once again, it's one of those, every person has their own approach. I personally like watercolor brushes because the way I paint is more watercolory. I have a very watercolor approach. So they do help me with that. But I definitely have synthetic brushes that I use for different things. So I use, Tammin asked what I'm using to hold the miniature. So the way I hold my miniatures is I usually use double-sided tape. You can see it there. And this is just a lid. This is just a primer lid that I just stick it on. Do I have another example of what I like to use? This is actually one of my favorite things to use. So this is just a wooden dowel rod that I cut down. I actually glued it to a miniature's base with super glue, and then I use blue tack or double-sided tape again. I'll attach the miniature to this, and this gives me something to hold, right? I got big mitts, I need something big to hold, and like holding a miniature like, do I have anything like this, right? With your fingers and you're pinching, it actually cramps the hand a lot. I don't recommend that. This is a better grip, right? A fist. So I like that. How I'm turning the miniature around is actually a microphone stand that I've blue tacked the cap onto. Not a big, I don't use this to paint for myself. I don't use this to paint except for when I'm streaming. The reason I use this when I'm streaming is because you will never see the miniature if I don't use it. Because I will be off camera in like 2 seconds and you'll never see a miniature, and I'll be talking about it and you'll be screaming on chat, why is the miniature not there? Because I'm all over the place. So this keeps me locked in place. It's my little trick to keep me on target, as we are wont to say. But the cap is definitely super great. You know, I even use big caps. and it gives me something to grip while I'm painting the miniature. You can see I'm all about, let's back up just a little bit, zoom out just, I'm all about getting a good grip, and then that lets me anchor and paint the miniature, right? Because that's what it's about. It's about that comfort, right? You need to be comfortable when you're painting. All right, we still got some time, so I'm down to paint if you're down to paint. Got 15 minutes. Let's throw in some highlights on this blue. So I'm going to mix a little off-white. So people get intimidated by highlights. I just like, if I'm painting for a tabletop, let's just throw a couple of lines, right? We're just going to throw a couple of lines right where you want that highlight to be. You know, top of the kneecap, right? He's got this thigh muscle that's very accentuated. Let's just throw a little highlight across that. You know, just a little line. It doesn't take much. You can thin your paints down, do like little thin lines. Like back here on the back. Doop, doop, doop. You can do something fancy. You don't have to. Just throw a little line like this. Just maybe pop out that little highlight there. Boop, boop. Little highlight there. Little highlight there. I'm just kind of picking the spots. I'm kind of just letting the miniature tell me where it is. Right there on that bicep. Right here, right where that torso, that side of that torso comes over. Right? Boom. Boom. Just real quick little lines. Nothing fancy. We're not doing fancy today. That's a different stream. Let's pop the highlights on this red one more time. So I like little dots, add texture. Once again, I'm just using the tip of that brush, dragging it right across the top edge of those spider lines. Not letting it get down in the spider webs where our blue is, because we don't want to obliterate our blues. Right now it looks a little messy, but that's okay. We're painting Spider-Man 30 minutes. He ain't gotta look perfect. Solid coat of fire truck red here. A primary red. And this could be washed blue if you want to tone it. Let's just throw some highlights on that, and then we'll wash it with blue later. I call this sharpening my brush. Twist and drag, get that nice fine point. Yeah, it needs to be a little brighter. That storm wall was scary. Nah. I'll show you something fun with that storm. So if you wanted to, he's got this black, or he's got this trim around. We could paint this black. And you don't have to do this. This is up to you. You could just be a little more heavy-handed on the blue wash and make the blue wash go over that piping. Or you can just leave it. It doesn't matter. It's really up to you. And I'm going to paint mine black. Just use the side of the brush there, just like that. Side of the brush. And I'll just go around all that. That storm wobble, let's talk about that. So we had a lot of fun designing this. I know this is an intro to miniatures, but this is actually quite sturdy. She's actually quite strong. It just got a little wobble because there's a one-point connection, but it adds to the drama. When you're painting that, my tip for you is take a little blue tack. Now she won't wobble. Easy peasy. Alright, I don't think we're going to make it to the base, but the base would just be some metallics, and then the rocks, or just grays, maybe a little brown. It's up to you. So this is just like the next level. If you want to stop, you could have stopped at any time after getting that blue and that red on. So it's just up to you how far you want to take it. Like I said, there's no wrong way. It's your miniature. A nice thin paint there. Not very much on the brush. That really frames up between that red and blue a lot. You're just typical fantastic-y. I usually save the base for last because yeah, I make a mess. Sometimes I swipe paint down there if I've got too much on my brush. It also is kind of like the frame of a painting, right? You know, say you're painting the Mona Lisa, the last thing you do is put it in a frame. That's the way I look at my bases of my miniatures. You know, you finish the painting and then you put the frame on it. And the frame is the base. Also, I want my character to look just a certain way, and then I can match the base to like the atmosphere of the miniature. Or you paint at the same time. Once again, it's really up to you and your approach. And if I make a mistake, I just made a mistake there and that's okay. And clean that up. I like to say painting miniatures is a fine art of correcting one's mistakes. I don't have much left. Oh, we only got 5 minutes. Alright. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of the base. So for something like this, I'd go ahead and maybe paint some black and white together over top of the rocks. So a nice dark base will kind of push the character to the front. Dark colors go back, light colors come front. This is the way colors work. So a nice light or a nice dark base, but not too dark. You don't want it black. But a nice dark base will help push the miniature forward. So let's go with some dark stone here. This is just kind of wet blending. The paint's not dry, but I'm adding a light color. Just adding another color paint right over top of it, letting the wetness blend it together. This is just adding some value to it. And of course the I-beam will be painted metallic, so I like to throw a coat of black on that. You don't have to, but it will darken up the metallic paint as you put the metallic paint on. So if you have any questions, let me know. You got only a few more minutes. I hope everybody's having an awesome PAX. You know, there's a lot of people working really hard on the streams, doing a good job, being super helpful. So make sure you show your appreciation. Oh, no problem. I'm always happy to help. Oh, bricks. Let's talk about bricks. You know how I paint bricks? I paint them almost the exact same way I paint Spider-Man. I paint them with like a red glaze wash, and then I do a blue, and then I dry brush them with pink. That's how I paint bricks. Oh, Angry Bubble, it is my pleasure to join PAX. We're having a great time. Atomic Mass Games has had a couple of panels over PAX, and we've been having a great time. So you can always check us out if you're interested, or atomicmassgames.com. We do streams every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you're interested, check them out. Where I paint. It's a lot of fun. PAX has been a blast. I'm just going to paint up this base with some more black. We're just framing him up now. Just framing him up. The paint's not quite dry, but that's okay. My Spider-Man is almost done. You know what? For an hour of assembling painting, I'm pretty gosh darn happy. I would totally put this on a table and play against anybody who threw down a challenge at my local game store with my Spider-Man. The only thing I'd finish up is the base, like metallic on the I-beam there, and dry brush the rock and metallic on the metal grate. But all in all, for an hour and no complex painting techniques, I think I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm gonna switch over my camera to say goodbye, if that's okay. Is that okay? Hello. So, thank you for joining, everybody. I hope that was insightful, helpful, and inspirational. Remember, we're all on different points of the same path, so just keep on painting and have a good time. And you know what? Keep enjoying PAX. And until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye, guys.